The first official MMOFPS is credited to a game called World War II Online. In this game, you take part in massive World War II battles on 1,000 player servers, engaging in land and air PvP combat on a map 350,000 square kilometers large. That's roughly the same size as actual Germany. This game was released all the way back in 2001 on the PC, a game that is somehow still in active development today and slated to have a remastered Unreal Engine release at some point in the future. After this, notable MMOFPSs include the legendary MAG for the PS3, PlanetSide 2 for the PC and PlayStation 4, and of course, Grey Zone Warfare. Wait, what? Grey Zone Warfare is a PvPvE realistic extraction shooter, or at least it was, until director of PR at Madfinger Games, Rick, decided it was now an MMOFPS. Something he decided shortly after suggesting that the game was an extraction shooter, which it apparently wasn't one patch before that. At the heart of Grey Zone Warfare is an identity crisis, a crisis that leads to a game that offers so much and yet appeals to no one. For the last few days, I've been playing this game with the sole purpose of cutting through the marketing noise to find out what this game actually is and who it's really for. And by the end of this video, you'll realize why this was so difficult. Grey Zone Warfare blasted into the FPS world about a year ago with their early access tactical shooter release. A shockingly realistic, incredibly ambitious open world extraction shooter with no loading screens, full-on survival mechanics, and weapon in specs that would make even the most adamant gun hater just a little bit moist. Launching at a time where obvious competitor Escape from Tarkov had enraged their entire community by dropping a $250 version of their game, it was the perfect storm for Grey Zone Warfare to take center stage as the #1 extraction shooter. Unfortunately, their far-reaching and intricate marketing campaign fell apart when people actually played the game, with performance that looked like this, AI that looked like this, and combat that went like this. It was no surprise that within 2 months, the player base had almost completely vanished. It's no shock then that a game with a reputation as tarnished as this was in dire need of a rebrand. And after turning the game into a PvE-focused extraction shooter in patch 0.2 garnered this community response, it seems only logical that in update 0.3 they try PvP instead. Welcome to Winds of War, update 0.3 for Grey Zone Warfare, the great PvP reshuffle. In this update you now have access to COPS, AI-controlled bases that players can fight for control of the map, as well as POIs, harder raid-like missions against AI that squads can sign up for. And of course, this new red circle technology that highlights where on the map PvP is taking place, so you will have no problem at all finding that PvP action you so crave. Or at least, that's the idea. According to head of Grey Zone PR, Rick, that's always been the idea. So Grey Zone is a PvP tactical shooter, right? Actually, that's just one of its identities. There are at least 3. Let's start with the newest one. An MMOFPS is a massively online multiplayer first-person shooter game. The key term here is massive. Remember those games I mentioned earlier? MMOFPS MAG has a server size of 256 players. PlanetSide 2 has servers 2,000 players large. Grey Zone Warfare has 48 player servers. That's not even half a squad server, and squad ain't out here claiming to be an MMOFPS. But okay, maybe we're using the term massive to describe the map instead of the player count. The Grey Zone map is 42 square kilometers. Fair enough, it's not small, but it's hardly the 350,000 square kilometers of World War II Online. And it's still a far cry from PlanetSide 2's 64 square kilometers. But okay, maybe the term massive refers more to a feeling of existing in a massive living, breathing world. That speaks to me more of a survival game than an MMO, but I'm trying to give you the benefit of the doubt, Grey Zone. Grey Zone does have day-night cycles, dynamic weather, and changes to how vendor tasks are taken to keep the player out on the map longer, spending less time returning to base to cash in tasks. But do not mistake this for a living, breathing world. The lush jungles and overgrown plains of Lemang may sound like a hive of wildlife-infused activity, but they are physically filled with nothing. Unlike recently released MMO Dune, the environment is not something you have to survive. Yes, you have to eat when the eat symbol tells you to, and drink when the drink symbol tells you to, but you're not out here dodging leeches or stepping on frogs. The rain doesn't change how you navigate the world. Nighttime combat is exactly the same as daytime combat, it just looks different. The world has the illusion of being massive, but it actually isn't. To be clear, I'm not trying to dog on the game, I'm just trying to figure out what it is. Now that we've established that Greyzone is definitely not an MMO, let's figure out what it actually is. Well, apparently it's not an extraction shooter either. You see, an extraction shooter is when you start in a safe space with your locker and some AI task givers. You take some missions, build your loadout, then leave that safe space and enter the PvPvE world. In this world, you fight to complete objectives and gather loot along the way, which you then extract by taking it to a safe place and putting it in your locker. Hang on a second. That sounds like Greyzone Warfare. Don't worry guys, the marketing team is here to clarify. You see, in patch 0.1, Greyzone Warfare was definitely not an extraction shooter. But in 0.2, Greyzone definitely was. Apparently, ironically, an extraction shooter. But in 0.3, Greyzone is definitely, absolutely not an extraction shooter. Again. Now that's a bit confusing, but don't worry, Rick has a metaphor to help you out. Saying Greyzone Warfare is an extraction shooter just because you extract is like saying Skyrim is a dating sim just because you can get married. Yes, it's possible, but that's not what the game is about. So now that we've established that gathering loot and extracting it to your locker is not what the game is about, let's figure out what the game is about. The game is split into two parts. The game that was marketed to the audience and the real game. I've played both. In the game that was marketed to the audience, that's the early closed playtest select streamers and content creators were invited to, you spawn into the world with a full locker of all the new best gear, a huge amount of money, and a map with all the LZs unlocked. These are the spots where you fly into the map from base. In this version of the game, you can fly freely to PvP locations, safe in the knowledge that you have the appropriate gear to take a PvP fight. And you have no fear of losing your gear because you have more good gear at home, and an unlimited amount of money. Also, with all vendors already unlocked, you can buy whatever top tier loot you want to replace whatever you lost. So in the closed creator version of the game, the version all these streamers and content creators use to market the game to you, PvP is incredibly easy to find and also very easy to transport yourself to, lending evidence to the theory that Greyzone is now a PvP extraction-esque shooter. However, as is the running theme of this video, the marketed version of the game has a distinctly different identity to the actual game. In the actual game, you spawn in with this loot. It's not nothing, but it's far from this. You'll also be required to unlock vendors by gaining XP. XP that is quickest to build up by doing, one could say ironically, PvE. You'll also have to walk thousands of meters across a map with no vehicle transport options to unlock all the LZ landing spots in the game that were so kindly gifted to you in the content creator version. So if you're looking to do some PvP, you'll actually spend most of your time doing PvE, which unfortunately is what everyone else is doing. So actually finding someone to PvP on a large map with only 48 players on it, all of which are minding their own business doing PvE vendor tasks, makes for a PvP focused game with very little PvP. Myself and Jeff went out of our way to entirely avoid PvE in an attempt to find some straight up PvP from spawn. Unfortunately, we were only able to find one player after 2 hours of looking and an extensive amount of PvE. During that time, we lost pretty much all of our gear, had no XP or money because we were avoiding PvE entirely, and felt largely negative about our experience as a whole, and will likely never return to this apparent PvP game, now knowing that we'll have to grind PvE to be a part of it. And I'm not here to tell you that fighting AI is bad, because some people like fighting AI. I'm just highlighting to you that the game exists in a worryingly conflicted place. But after some digging, I think I've figured out why PvP is the new focus, even if the game isn't actually a PvP game. With this update, you probably didn't know that they also raised the price of the game. Within each version of the game is an increasing amount of loot players can start with, depending on how much money they're willing to fork out. So someone who spent an eye-watering $120 on this unfinished early access title will have a significant PvP advantage to someone who spent $40. These are pay-to-win advantages that don't matter in a PvE-only game, but they absolutely matter in a PvP-focused game. With these things in mind, I asked the question of who exactly Grey Zone Warfare is for. It has PvP elements that will appeal to a PvP-focused audience, but these elements are locked behind a strict PvE gameplay loop that's almost unavoidable on your hunt for PvP. The game has realistic survival mechanics that include keeping your food and water topped up, but without a harsh and challenging game world that any survival game enthusiast would want to challenge themselves to survive in. It has forward base capturing mechanics, but no base building mechanics, no logistics, not even the ability to choose a forward spawn point to build some kind of front line that would appeal to a large-scale warfare milsim player. It has extraction shooter mechanics, but with a reduced focus on loot gathering or actual extraction gameplay loops, alienating the hardcore extraction crowd. And if you happen to be an MMO player who's walked into this game, well, God help you. What the? There are two people crossing to the other side. I'm witnessing some kind of religious moment. I asked my Discord what they thought of Grey Zone Warfare. Whiskers says he loves PvP but doesn't want any PvE as AI combatants tend to just get in the way. Pigeon says he loves the idea of the game but doesn't enjoy extraction shooters. Maybe he doesn't know it's an MMO now. It was an extraction shooter last patch. Come on Pigeon, keep up. Dr. Hack says that the combat feels like Warzone but in the jungle. Respect the 201 thinks Ground Branch is better. Probably the most crushing insult to have ever been levied against a game. 1000 Watts thinks the launch was trash. Optimize rather fittingly hates the optimization, and Wheat hasn't even bloody heard of it. People are confused, and rightly so. At the heart of Grey Zone Warfare's problems is a severe lack of identity. The dev team is making some kind of realistic tech demo with fancy weapon models and advanced ballistics tracking. The marketing team are trying to sell a tactical MMO for some reason, and an audience, at least in my opinion, may prove hard to find for a game that doesn't know what it is. So at the end of the day, I can't tell you what Grey Zone Warfare is, and I can't tell you who it's for, but I can definitely tell you that it's not an MMO FPS.